Welcome to a new interview here in the Energy Bridge. Today we are in VERBUND facilities in Investment Hub. Amazing. So today we have the pleasure to have Rudolf Zauner. It's the person behind the VERBUND innovation for new.
One of the persons.
Yeah, so very happy. Thank you for having us here, and happy to have a conversation with you today and know more about VERBUND X.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Rudolf, first of all, for giving us the time. And you, we can safely say you're the veteran. You have seen, you have seen the energy transition. Now, jokes aside, thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, please tell us how did it all start? Like how you tell us a bit about your journey and how you got into the energy industry. Walk us through.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, veteran is one word, vintage is another one. So whatever you want to call it, but I've been around for quite some time in the energy business, so that's a definite. Yeah. As mentioned, my name is Rudi Zauner, and I have been working for VERBUND for quite some time, for 20 years.
Wow.
But my journey into renewables actually began far earlier. I did a technical school for mechanical engineering, a HTL we call it in Austria. And as one of the projects there, actually it was a private project, we built a small hydropower plant. It's cool, yeah. So it was actually my seatmate who had the idea. He went on a hiking trip to the Alps and went to this chalet, and they didn't have any electricity. So how can we help them? We can build a small hydropower plant. It took us a couple of years, from developing, designing. We did all the construction ourselves, even the casting of the turbine blades, everything ourselves, together with schoolmates, of course. And we're very proud. In late 80s, we could then actually opening it. The opening ceremony was also quite a thing. The local politicians came, and it was even in the Austrian VERBUND magazine at that time, some 40 odd years ago. And it was really good, and it's still up and running. It's an 8 kilowatt turbine that we built there. So this was actually, I think this was my first hands-on renewables project. And I was always interested in that.
Yeah, an entrepreneur, like from very teenager.
Well, yeah, well, you have to try things out, otherwise you don't know whether they work or not. Yeah,
Totally.
From that on, well, I was very fascinated with chemical engineering and of unit operations, because you can put them together like jigsaw puzzles and jigsaw pieces, and you can create your own processes, sustainable processes, environmentally friendly processes out of that. So I decided to do chemical engineering in Graz, and I specialized in environmental engineering there, and did my PhD then at UCL in London in process technology. So this was actually my way, but it was always a little bit, let's say, I was always very much looking into renewables and into environmental friendly technologies. Yeah. So yeah, I think there has been an early interest in sustainability and in environmentally friendly processes. And yeah, with VERBUND, I found my fulfillment, because it's a purely renewable company, almost purely renewable company. So I'm very happy to be here.
And you started your career here.
Oh, no, I actually didn't. No. Well, I went abroad for quite some time. I was abroad for about 10 years. Yeah. Well, I said I did my PhD in London at UCL and started my career in Germany at BASF, big chemical company, very nice playground for young engineers, everything there, huge operations, many processes, many plants next to each other. It was just huge and a very good learning ground. Started there, and then I was thinking about coming back to Austria, but then there was this job opening by Austrian research centers. They had actually opened a branch in the States, in Pennsylvania, for technology transfer. So I thought, well, before coming back to Austria, let's take the US as well. So I spent a couple of years in the US, and it was very exciting times where I worked on technology transfer, then came back to Austrian research centers where I worked on a new technology called powder injection molding, where we started a development center, helped the Austrian industry. And then, well, there comes this time in your life that you think, well, what is it really about and what do I want to do? Yeah. And then I saw just by chance this job opening in one of the newspapers. By that time you looked at newspapers, not on the internet or anywhere else, and saw that VERBUND was looking for an expert in renewable energies. And I thought, well, I'm not an expert, but I'll just try to apply. Yeah, I applied, and this was actually when VERBUND Renewable Power was founded. And by that time I joined VERBUND, some 20 years ago.
Thank you, Rudolf. Tell us a bit about VERBUND as well and the legacy of VERBUND.
Yeah, VERBUND is the largest Austrian electricity utility. And we're very proud of our very clean generation spread. Around 98% of our energy production, of electricity production, comes from renewables. Mostly, of course, from our legacy technology, hydropower. But we have added quite a bit of wind and solar to our portfolio as well. And this is also something why I came into the company. I worked in the renewables field. My first projects were renewable projects in Spain, PV projects, and of course also some projects in Eastern Europe. And I think this makes probably a nice bridge to your bridge.
Yeah, cool. And you were, I mean, just first of all, how big is the portfolio of VERBUND in megawatts?
I can tell you the annual generation that we have. That's around, I think, 35 terawatt hours. And if you compare it to the Austrian electricity demand, which lies around between 65 to 70, so it's quite a bit. Yeah, and as I mentioned, mostly hydropower. We also have pumped storage whenever you're in the Alps and walk around, go on a hiking trip. You see some reservoirs. So most of them belong to us as well. So they help very much as our green alpine batteries to shift the energy between
flexibility
when it's
exactly,
and we need more of it with more renewables. We will need far more flexibility.
And do you have more projects in Eastern Europe?
Yeah, we have projects in development and actually in operation in Romania. We have projects in Albania as well. Yeah, I think these are our two current Eastern Europe production units. I hope I haven't forgotten anything, but I think I'm very sure about those.
And in terms of all the geographical footprint around Austria, which other countries VERBUND is active?
We are very active in Germany and very active in Spain as well, where we also build a portfolio of solar mostly and wind, of course. We have footprint in Germany. One of my first wind projects were actually in Germany, in the Hunsrück. We have, of course, projects here in Austria, also not only in hydropower, but also in wind and PV and various technologies. In Albania, we have hydropower. We are planning here wind projects as well. And in Romania was also the first greenfield wind projects that we had some 15 years ago in VERBUND Renewable Power. They was actually a long time our largest wind portfolio with a couple of 100 megawatts. It's in the eastern part of Romania, in the Dobruja region, where we really started from scratch.
And 15 years ago, how was it back in the time to develop something?
Yeah, it was quite different. Yeah, because wind and solar were quite edgy technologies. They were not mainstream or anything at all. Yeah, and it was a time of, going somewhere and not knowing what to expect. Yeah. So one thing that we quickly found out was in countries like Romania, so it's very good to work with local partners. So for the development of our projects, we partnered up with a local partner because I said we started from scratch. There wasn't even a substation there. So we built a substation that feeds into the 400 kV grid of Transelectrica, the Romanian TSO. So that had to be there as well. And now also other wind park operators feed into that. So we were really the first ones there, or first or second or so. And we had to get all the infrastructure done and everything. Yeah. So we worked a lot with local people, which is also very important to also integrate the local community. We had to build the infrastructure, the streets and everything. And later on, when we were there, we sponsored the kindergarten, the local kindergarten, and so, and really got involved in the community. This was very, very important. We hired local staff, of course. It was really good to see how people liked to work in the wind farms. Yeah, they really saw this as a chance. Yeah, they worked very hard, had very good work ethics, and it was a great time. Yeah, a great time of something is changing.
Exciting.
And so that was the learning from Romania to integrate also the community. And you had similar projects. What other projects 15 years ago? Let's start. That you started and it felt like a really massive things, and now it feels way more easier.
One of our first projects was in Spain on photovoltaics. Yeah, so it was a time when many developers were actually developing projects, but not that many pulled actually through. Yeah, so this is something that was special to this time as well. There were many projects out there, and you didn't really know which one will actually make it to a final investment decision, because there was such a lot out there. And did they really have permit, and were they watertight or not? Were there any land restrictions or anything? Yeah, so it was really it was a bit of a messy ground where we had to move around. Yeah, but I think this has changed now. There's regulation in place, there's policy in place, there is far more, let's say, legal backing how to tackle such projects. But at the very beginning, this was very in the flow. Let's call it in the flow. Yeah,
I can imagine that the amount of due diligences doing back in the time, if you have a huge pool and you don't know which one.
Yeah. So you had to visit the sites, the individual sites, check the data, the wind data of the years before, and so on. We worked with some very specialized consultants at that time. There were also some kind of pioneers in this time, and it was kind of an era of pioneers, I would call it. So it was really really great to be part of that.
Yeah, that's in 2010, kind of.
Yeah,
around
between
before.
Bit before that, actually. Yeah.
And regarding, that we are interested in Eastern region, and you have presence there. In your vision, what is your opinion with the biggest challenge that this region is facing because they are relying more in fossil fuels?
And having said that, Central and Eastern.
Central and Eastern.
Yeah. There's still a long way to go in the energy transition. Yes, some coal-fired power plants that have to be closed down. Probably the financial costs are higher in those countries because the country risks are higher, so it's more difficult to get projects financed. And I think this is something projects in this region of the CE are still facing. Yeah. I think now the infrastructure has really caught up quite a bit. Yeah, the infrastructure in terms of, let's say, roads and accessibility to the sites, the infrastructure of telecommunications, and so I think this is now really a good standard. Yeah, so that you can build on. Yeah, and this definitely has changed since then.
This challenge of the risk. It's something that we are addressing with the forums that we are organizing to de-risk the region through more information, more transparency, like putting people together, policymakers, industry. So we also identify this risk.
That's definitely a very important job that you are doing, and you are doing it. How do you do that actually? To bring those stakeholders together?
Basically, we are taking the bridge concept from the EU Commission of gathering the regional stakeholders together. So the region that we have chosen is Central and Eastern Europe. And before you were asking us why we chose this region, so it's actually because this region has like similar journey in energy transition, and the consolidation of ecosystem still needs to happen. And because of last couple of years, how things have happened, they really need to leapfrog their energy transition journey. And they had to have certain players like ourselves and many others who are able to solve the coordination gap between different stakeholders of academia, industry, policymakers, and strategic financing for the projects. So yeah, we are addressing that through our forums, where we take particular topics, and Austria has to be the regional model within Central and Eastern Europe. So we do our forums in Vienna, and for any particular topic, we make sure that all the stakeholders are present, so that any discussion could be outcome oriented. So that's how we are addressing via forum. We do other things as well, but that's about the forum.
Yeah. So
It's like a good plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's inviting policymakers into the discussion as well, because energy is super regulated sector, and main risk, because I'm a developer by myself, so it's the legal certainty. So helping policymakers to go through or to set certain, even the rules can be super different, but having rules enable more investment.
Yeah, and sticking to the rules is very
And
important
sticking.
for an investor, that they don't change later on.
Yeah,
because this has done a lot of damage in some of the markets. Yeah, I was in Spain in the
with the solar tax
with
that
the
they
solar
had.
tax, and also I think in Romania they introduced some cuts of the certificates, and so there are various things that happened that really do not build the confidence of investors. Yeah.
Also, we felt that the whole innovation gap between how the technology is moving and how the regulation is moving is something to be addressed if we really want the deployment to happen faster.
Now, speaking about energy transition and some, like a bit of dreaming, what would you do if you had 1 billion euros? Where would you bet? More in long-term storage, or more maybe flexibility or demand response or permitting reforms maybe?
But I think renewable build-out is a kind of a no-brainer, but it has to be orchestrated, I think, with the right renewables in the right place at the right time. It has to be coordinated with flexibility build-out and with grid build-out. Flexibility build-out, I mean storage and demand flexibility for time-wise shifting, and grid flexibility for geographical shifting, because only then renewables will come to their full potential. Yeah. So I would spend some money on those. Well, I would not spend it. I would invest it. I would invest it, in those technologies. But all of the technologies you mentioned, we will somehow need them all, because it will be a mix at the end of the day, and we will need reliable and rigid policies as well. Yeah, we'll probably need some incentives at the beginning to get things off the ground. Yeah, so it will be a mixture, I think. Yeah, so I would not bet it on one thing, but invest it more broadly.
Talking about different technologies, you have been one of the very early mover in green hydrogen. Tell us about the early projects that you got into it, and before that whole hydrogen hype, why you started working on it, and what was the project about?
About 10 years ago, VERBUND started to move into green hydrogen, and being a chemical engineer, I put my hand up and said, well, here I am, and said, well, this is a topic I believe in, and that could really become great, and we have to have a closer look at it. We looked at the role that VERBUND could play. We wanted to extend our value chain from an electricity producer to a provider of green molecules, and for that we initiated a innovation program, Green Hydrogen, and at that time the hydrogen was not very much spoken about it, but there were already a few opportunities from EU funding. So we applied for EU funding for a large project for H2 Future, which got granted, and it was actually quite a lighthouse project at the time. We deployed a 6 megawatt PEM, proton exchange membrane electrolyzer, at the steelworks in Linz at voestalpine. And at the time, this was the world's largest electrolyzer to our knowledge. So world's largest PEM electrolyzer to our knowledge.
How big was it?
6 megawatt at that time. So this was 2019. It went into operation. It was far before all the big projects and so were announced. So was a strong consortium, with voestalpine as the industrial partner, Siemens as technology provider. Then we had the Austrian TSO, Austrian Power Grid, as the grid operator. We had 2 research organizations in our consortium, K1 Met and TNO from Holland, and VERBUND was coordinator and the utility. And actually, I coordinated this project. It was very exciting. Wow. It was also really success story from EU side as well. We got prizes and awards for that project because it was really a huge thing. And what we actually wanted to do is we wanted to deploy an industrial electrolyzer in an industrial environment and see whether we could utilize it as a flexibility tool. See how we could actually use it for grid balancing and for some ancillary services.
Like Power to X.
Bit like Power to X, exactly. The project started in 2017 and we went into operation late 2019, just before COVID, which was good because it ran then all automatically and we could run it and actually operate it from here as well. And we pre-qualified it for grid services, for FCR, which is a frequency containment reserve, for AFRR, automated frequency restoration reserve, on MFRR, manual frequency regulation reserve, which used to be primary, secondary, and tertiary reserve. We did that together with our partner, Austrian Power Grid, the grid operator, and we qualified for all these services. And now we are operating it mostly in the AFRR regime, and we feed in the hydrogen, the green hydrogen, into the pipe system of voestalpine. So it has been running since, still in operation, and was quite a milestone. We learned a lot about operating electrolyzers and what are the boundaries, how can you actually, how quickly can you start them up, shut them down, and all these kind of things.
Have you been involved in any current projects as well for hydrogen?
Not in any current projects, but there's probably one project that might be interesting to you as well, because it concerns the CEE region as well. Yeah. So in 2018, I had the idea for a project, I called it Green Hydrogen at Blue Danube, where the idea was to produce green hydrogen in Romania and Bulgaria out of renewables. We saw from our operations that there was enough space for wind and so, and it was quite easy to produce wind there, and then convert the renewable energy into green hydrogen and ship it along the river Danube to off-takers, let's say in Austria or in southern Germany, in Bavaria. So this was the plan, and we did a feasibility study for that, and it turned out that, well, transportation and so, it was too expensive, at that time, unfortunately, So we didn't continue with this project, but I think it was one of these early projects. It was quite visionary because it was looking at international value chains for hydrogen at the time when nobody was talking about that. So was unfortunately it didn't turn out. It didn't materialize. We then, as a follow-up, did some smaller projects along the river Danube, but that was really something, I think, where we put our mark on the hydrogen landscape as well.
Okay, so this hydrogen transportation through the Danube was thought in green ammonia or in fuel cells or pipelines? What was the idea?
Yeah, very, very good question. And of course, we thought about that a lot. We also worked together with the Danube Commission, which is located in Budapest, to find out what are the best ways of transporting hydrogen or its derivatives on the river Danube. And originally, we thought the probably most pragmatic way was with liquid organic hydrogen carriers, LOHC, where hydrogen is chemically bonded to a liquid, and then it is debonded again, by a thermal process.
Okay, so low temperature, high pressure.
Yeah, well, hydrogen is not transported as hydrogen, but as a liquid. Then but it's not liquefied. It's actually chemically bounded to a liquid, which is harmless, and that can be transported like any other cargo on the river Danube. So this was the big advantage, because if you think into pressurized hydrogen or into liquid hydrogen, also you might have problems with all the locks around the river Danube. So we thought, we don't want to get into that. Let's see whether this way would work. And from a permission point of view, the Danube Commission was quite sure, that there had to be a few policy changes probably, but that would have been possible.
Yeah. And how do you call this process?
It's liquid organic hydrogen carriers, LOHC they are called.
Okay.
And we work with a company in Germany actually on that. Yeah, there are some interesting concepts out. We also looked, of course, a little bit into ammonia later on, and so it's tricky. Yeah,
the efficiency of the system drops.
Yeah, we also thought about probably producing other, let's say, hydrogen derivatives like e-fuels or so, and then ship them. Yeah, but it gets, unfortunately, with every step that you add to the process, it doesn't get cheaper. Let's call it that.
But you think like the costs are coming down?
That's a good question, because already at that time many consultants predicted that the electrolyzer costs and the cost of hydrogen would come down. I was always a little bit doubtful about that, because I'm a chemical engineer and I know such a hydrogen plant, big part is balance of plant. Only a small part is the electrolyzer and the stacks, which actually could come down in costs when you scale up manufacturing. But balance of plant that's a mature technology. They're at the very end of their learning curve, so it will not really come down. So it didn't surprise me too much that the cost didn't that much come down. And also, unfortunately, I think the willingness to pay of customers also not really increased. So there's still this gap.
Yeah.
But now that you are speaking about innovation, let's go deep into it. Energy, we know that the technology is advancing faster than policymakers, faster than anything. So what do you think is the role of innovation in energy transition?
I think innovation is a key driver for any transition, not only for the energy transition. We have seen this in many industries. I mean, you know the examples. I don't have to. I don't have to tell you. So I think we need innovation to really build a renewables system that is reliable, that is competitive, and that is affordable. And innovation will help us to do that. And this will really actually trigger the energy transition. Think about, the other day I saw a graph in what parts of the world wind and solar are the cheapest energy sources. And I think it covered 2/3 of the world already. Wow. So this is amazing. And this is driven by innovation. And this is really something that gives us the spirit that we can achieve something if we want to. And I think this is a prime example where innovation really leads to this trigger where innovative technologies become cost competitive, and then they just run from themselves. And it's
And is there some particular innovation that you think that it will be disruptive, or you will bet more on it?
Especially because VERBUND X is ahead of the curve of looking at the innovation.
We're always ahead of the curve. No, just joking. That's a tricky one, because disruptions are hard to predict, because otherwise there are no disruption, or these shocks. But I mean, what I have experienced, especially now in the last, let's say, 1 or 2 years, is that many disruptions are not driven by technology. They come from policy and political shocks or so, that actually lead to disruptions. We see this. Yeah, we see this with taxes that all of a sudden show up. Yeah, and the whole geopolitical system is under flow right now. So I think this very much disrupts our system, yeah, or slows it down or makes it faster at some places. Yeah.
Can you think of any example that in last 5 to 10 years that it just came and it disrupted the whole system and got adopted very fast?
Of course, there are some technologies that get quickly adopted. Yeah, I mean, just think of EVs, of EV charging, and how that is now progressing. Yeah, and about 5 or 10 years ago, it was too expensive. There was this chicken and egg problem, and so on. But now there are wall boxes everywhere. There are charging stations everywhere. There are EV cars everywhere. When you go out and you see them, and it's really, I think it's disrupting the combustion engine industry as you see in Germany. Yeah, and it seems that we are probably a little bit overtaken by the Chinese right now. You see that they are pushing into our markets with their EVs, with cost-competitive EVs. So I think this could really lead to a complete change in our mobility.
Just on that note, where do you think, like especially in the whole energy system right now, we have to agree that China and US they somehow lead in some part of manufacturing. Where you think is Austria leading or Europe as a whole is leading?
That's a good question. I think probably you read the Draghi report. Yeah, he laid out. He said that Europe is very good in basic research, but we are not bringing research into products and into industrialization. I think this is where we're lacking. We're very good at basic research. We still have a lot of patents and so, yeah, but we are lacking of getting this on the road, let's call it. And this is, I think, where we probably also need a little bit of a shift in the funding system, yeah, from funding basic research probably to funding pilots, first of a kind projects, and so to close this gap between lab scale or small scale and real industrialization, this valley of death that many companies are facing if they want to deploy new technologies. Yeah, they do not get enough funding, venture funding, to actually get the products out in the market.
At VERBUND X, do you foster some innovation with doing pilots as well? How did it go? And also maybe together with academia, with universities, that you about research partners, or just tell us a bit about like how does the innovation system works within VERBUND X?
Let's start with the second part of the question, with collaborations with universities and partners. We think this is very important. Yeah, plays a very important role, and we also have a kind of a legacy on working with universities and partners, and we see there is a lot happening. Yeah, we do not have a lot of research facilities, or actually almost no research facilities or so here on our sites or in-house. So we need to work with partners, and we actually, one of the projects that we recently started was a Christian Doppler laboratory with the Technical University of Vienna on the topic of oxygen ion batteries. It's caught our eyes because these batteries, they are non-combustible, they are not toxic, and they do not use any critical minerals. So it looks like a very interesting storage technology. The Technical University of Vienna has developed it to small scale, let's say 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, as you do in the lab at the university. And we said, well, let's scale this up. Let's do a prototype with that, and let's test the prototype at VERBUND. And I asked them how we could do that, and they said, well, this will take some time. We need to do some more research on that and scale it up. And they suggested to do a Christian Doppler laboratory, so we applied for one, and we got it funded, and it started in January last year. And now we're already at 5 by 5 centimeters of our cells, and we are trying to use different manufacturing technologies that are scalable, so the manufacturability is also given. We try new material combinations, and it's very exciting. And the plan here is also to have a spin-off from the technical university for this technology. So I think that's a very nice example where we see something, think about it, because it would very well suit our projects for co-location with wind and solar to have these storage units. Yeah, they are non-toxic,
local production, local manufacturing.
Exactly.
We could interview them actually.
Yeah, sure. I'll give you the contact.
And
definitely happy to do that.
And this is other thing that we are doing is bridging innovation and startups with industry. Actually, yesterday we came back from Gdansk from a hackathon in critical infrastructure, and the concept of hackathon, of inviting professionals and students a whole weekend, 24 hours working in working through some challenges and then coming up with a solution. It was a super idea, and
especially in the whole energy sector right now, where so we'll be doing one in March. Where it could be also for you to scout for some innovation.
Exciting. I mean, what we do actually, and this probably comes a little bit to the second part of your question, is we have a VERBUND Accelerator program already running for 5 years, where we do use cases and pilots with startups. And this addresses your first part of the question. Do we pilots with startups? Yes, we do. Yeah, we do. Cool. And we also have some stories where we actually then invest in those startups, because we also have VERBUND Ventures, our investment subsidiary,
altogether,
where we can actually then see in what startups we want to invest, whether they have any funding rounds and so on. And this really comes together very nicely.
And what led to it? I mean, you said it's already been working for 5 years, right?
Exactly, yeah. You know, VERBUND is a large company. It's a kind of a big tanker that moves, yeah. And it moves steadily and very reliably. Yeah, but sometimes you need these small boats. The energy transition is a fast-moving, dynamic thing. Yeah, so we need these small boats where we can actually, find new ways, investigate new ways in a quick and easy way. And we see startups as this kind of quick boats. If you want to if you see the analogy that I want to make here. One thing is to work with startups to see how we can actually use their products in our business units. Yeah, of course, they help our core business, our daily business, but it also of course interesting to see where is growth potential in these startups, and where do we actually want to invest and see them not only as a strategic but also as a financial investment.
Amazing. And in this innovation, it's always we are in the energy transition to get 100% renewables. How do you see this last 10% of to get the 100%? Because it requires more technology, more innovation.
I think here we have to be a bit careful, yeah, because, well, let's talk about 100% renewable electricity first, yeah, because there's a big difference between electricity and energy. Well, you know, in Austria we have, I think, around 85% renewable electricity. VERBUND, as I said, is very proud of 98% renewables in our portfolio. And the Austrian Association Österreichs Energie has calculated that we need around, I think, 27 terawatt hours to get to the goal to have 100% renewable electricity by 2030. But 100% renewables means on an annual basis, and not on an hourly or second basis or so. So there will be times of surplus and there will be times of deficit in the electricity system as well. Yeah, and of course these times of deficit, they are the expensive one when it comes to the last 5 or 10%, because they probably require seasonal storage, I think, and then it becomes really expensive. Yeah. So the question that I would ask is, how much is enough? Yeah. If we would, let's say, go to 95% renewable electricity and the last 5%, couldn't we use the money that we need to close this gap to 100%? Couldn't we use this money also to have a larger lever on the CO2 reduction in another field? Let's say in heating or in renovating houses or anything. Yeah. So I think we're already very far but 100%, I think it's the expensive bit. And where do we really want it? And if we want to go to let's say a carbon neutral system or so, there are many other places where if we would fund them, probably the money spent would go a bit further than there. Let's call it that. If you know what I mean, I think on paper 100% renewables is very good goal, and I think in practice it's very difficult to achieve. As you said, the last few percents are very expensive.
And Rudy, going back to VERBUND Ventures, please walk us through how did operating, what is the current portfolio, what are the stages that VERBUND Accelerator works in, the ticket size, and also geography. Is it like Austria centric, or it does not have any geography focus?
Yeah. So there are two things. There's the VERBUND Accelerator that we started around 5 years ago, which is, it's an accelerator program for pilots. But about 2 years ago, we started with VERBUND Ventures, which is actually the investment vehicle of VERBUND to invest in startups. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And we have an investment thesis there. We invest in late seed and Series A up to 2.5 million euros. And our local focus is Europe. So our portfolio spans all over Europe. And we invest in the clean tech sector, clean energy sector. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is basically the concept, and then these are the boundaries in that we act in VERBUND Ventures.
And what are the stages? Do you have any specific, like seed A, B, or the later stages?
It's late seed and Series A. These are the stages where we invest.
And in this journey, what has been the biggest surprise of sources of innovation, like spin-off, universities or series founders, or?
Well, there are many sources. Yeah, there's the Accelerator that I mentioned. My colleagues, they attend a lot of events and they have a very good network. And I think the network is extremely important in the venture scene. There is a lot of word of mouth, people talking about things, and one investor telling you his or their deal flow, and you just have a lot of exchanges with others and see what they think, where things are going with various companies, and so I think this network is extremely important, and also it surprised me that it's really such a strong driver for finding the best investments there.
It helps to find this needle in the middle of the straw. I don't know if you have this.
In the middle of the haystack. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we screen a couple of hundred startups each year, and we have invested so far in about 10. Yeah. Okay. So it's really finding this needle in a haystack, as you said. Yeah, and that's time consuming, but you get better and better. You see what you have to watch out for.
What is the average ticket size for the investment that VERBUND does?
Around 1.5 to 2 million, I would say. So maximum is 2.5 million. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you measure success in this investment and scouting?
Well, we are quite new in the game, 2 years, but of course we have defined KPIs on how the startups are performing. They have some KPIs, revenue and growth areas and sales cycles, how long they take, and all these kind of, let's say, parameters vary from startup to startup. Yeah, and we are very engaged with our startups as well. So we are usually on the board, either as a board member or as an advisory member or observing member, and we also try to link them with our business units, because we do strategic investments that relate to our business units as well. Right. And one of the successes is, of course, if there comes some deal out of that, that the business units works with the startup. So this is something, There's a nice example of a Romanian startup. Back to CE, I said we invest in all over Europe. There's a Romanian company, Ogre.ai, they're called, and they do forecasting for EV charging points. And they were part of our accelerator. They did a pilot with one of our business units, Smartrix, and we saw that they had potential, and so we invested in them. So we are now invested in Ogre.ai, and our business units are working with them.
And the Accelerator program is, how long is the program?
We do batches, yeah.
Yeah.
Has been running for 5 years. I think we've done 9 batches or so, probably, 8, 9 batches. So we would do 1 or 2 batches each year. It's actually a collaboration program where we have other industrial partners as well. Yeah, there's a long list of partners actually that are either real partners or associated partners for that. And we define use cases. I think we have done around 50 use cases, roughly 50 use cases with those startups. And we have done a selection phase, yeah, and then a pitch phase, which is usually online. And then there's a kind of a demonstration day where we invite the winners.
How long is the batch over the year?
It runs for, well, the whole process is probably around half a year. Yeah.
Okay.
From the very first scouting, we usually work with some partners on the scouting as well, until we have the demo day where the startups then also are invited.
And currently, is there any scope that you're particularly looking into the startups or any particular area?
We have defined some, we call them investment theses for areas where we look into, and they are partly quite broad. Yeah, it's sustainable energy production, it's green mobility, and it's flow and flexibility, we call them. So these are the main areas, and there are now some areas around that coming as well with some newer technologies, some deep tech that we are looking into. So we started with our core expertise, and we are now like trying to look a little bit outside that as well, because we see that many of the really interesting things happen at the interfaces between disciplines and between technologies and so on. So this is why we're moving in that direction as well.
So now look into the future. What do you think about these disruptive technologies as carbon capture? We are facing now digitalization in the grid. We scoped this project with AIT about high temperature heat pumps, because we also share that energy consumption is 22-23% electrical, the rest is a bit of biomass, and the rest is fuel. How do you see in the energy sector these technologies, carbon capture, digitalization, heat pumps, geothermal now also coming?
I mean, there are so many external drivers to that, yeah, like policies and politics, and how the demand will actually increase or decrease in what fields, in what regions, and so. And these are all drivers that will actually lead to one or the other technology to be dominant in one part of the world. Yeah, will it then just also come to other parts of the world? This is so difficult to say. Yeah, I mean, we see, of course, that electrification is quite strongly pushed. I have to say that because I'm working for an electricity company, so electricity first. Yeah. And as we talked about renewables and renewable penetration early on, so electricity gets very, very green, very low CO2 footprint. I think what you can actually electrify, because these are the lower hanging fruits still. So we see electrification of heating by heat pumps, probably also by lower temperature industrial heat applications. Yeah, we see electrification in the mobility sector, of course, with EVs, and we see that more and more trucks are now probably going this direction with mega chargers. So I think this is unstoppable. What you can electrify, you will electrify. Yeah, and then there are probably some of the hard to abate sectors. We had steel earlier on, fertilizer is probably another one. Yeah, cement. Yeah. And there, I think we need probably a holistic European view on that as well. What industries do we actually want in what value chain steps here in Europe? Yeah. Well, nowadays, let's say we import iron ore from Brazil, from Australia or so, yeah. Would it be thinkable to import in the future not iron ore but hot briquetted iron. Yeah, use renewables in Australia, a lot of sun, cheap renewables, produce green hydrogen and produce hot briquetted iron there and ship that as a pre-product to Europe. Then you have still a lot of the value chain here covered in Europe with the processing, the steel making, all the quality products making out of it. But you have shifted the energy demand from Europe to another part of the world where you probably are not so restricted by place and by resources. This is something I'm a little bit missing. Probably you can start in the CEE region, to think about that, whether each individual country needs their steelwork, needs their fertilizer plant, needs their cement plant, or could there be a kind of a unified European strategy on that? Yeah.
Interesting. And just in that note of electrification, we recently went to China and we visited some like associations and some institutes of research, and they told us that they are nearly 40% electrified and they are keeping pushing.
Yeah.
So it's maybe it's a big opportunity to Europe also to electrify more, find the gaps and push more electricity with clean resources. So it's
exactly, yeah, I think that's the way forward. Yeah. And that's probably the transition, the energy transition is all about. Yeah. This way to renewables and penetrate as many sectors as possible.
Rudolf, as much as we think of energy transition to be a technological challenge, it's also a skill challenge. I was just looking into the IEA energy employment outlook. Do you think there's professional shortage in the industry right now, or going forward, what are going to be the critical skills and that the Europe needs to have its own workforce going forward, also to drive this transition forward? So, what do you think is missing, and what do you think about if there's really a shortage, or where is the industry right now?
Build out of renewables is far faster than the talent that's created to actually do that. Yeah, so there's definitely a gap in electrical engineers, in software engineers, and so and also in maintenance people who actually do the on-ground work there as well. And I mean, at VERBUND we have a special approach to that because we also have an apprenticeship program here where we have a program for young people to do apprenticeships in mechanical and electrical engineering combined. Yeah. At 3 of our sites, we have 3 places where we actually do this education for them, and these are actually the future plant operators for us, and they know our plants then very well. We need these people who are actually very familiar with hydropower, with everything that we do here. And they are also more looking into photovoltaics and into wind, of course. Yeah, we have a team of wind experts that do all the maintenance. We have actually brought this in-house already about 10 years ago. This was one of my jobs when I was in charge of wind and solar operations. To cut cost, we created a team that is on site at our wind farms in Bruck an der Leitha and Lower Austria that actually does maintenance. So this was also quite a new concept at that time. So we get a lot of skill in-house, and that helps us to build on this skilled people, I think. Yeah.
So you see the problem, but you are solving it inside.
We're trying to mitigate it. Yeah, we're trying to mitigate the problem by having the workforce also in-house, that we are more flexible here.
We were supposed to move to the closing and your personal insights. I just have one question because yesterday I saw there have been a free trade agreement between EU and India. What do you think it entails for just on the skill talent? I saw it's going to be. I see more skills and more professionals going to India to help their journey. But do you have any opinion? Like, what do you think of this FTA?
I have seen it in the news, but I haven't followed it up very closely, to be honest. Yeah, but I mean, think about all the software engineers in India. I mean, there is such a lot of skill there, that we want to tap into here in Europe as well, of course. And I think Europe will make it probably will very much profit from that agreement, and I said earlier on, I did my PhD in UK, so there are many Indian people. There's a huge community, and they are super integrated in everything, and I think this should happen in continental Europe as well. So also to bring people here, we see that in India there's such a huge growth in renewables, in solar, and so I mean it's just amazing.
30 gigawatt project.
Yeah, I was recently talking with some of the state utilities, and what they want to learn from here is a lot of the grid infrastructure, because they also need to modernize, and there's a lot of software component that Europe has already advanced, and also the power market has not been liberalized in India. It hasn't opened yet.
Okay.
And that is something, there's a lot of learning for them. So I feel that the professional outflow, it's going to be a lot, especially in the energy sector, from Europe to India.
It will be in both directions.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be in both directions. Grid infrastructure is an interesting one. I mean, there are also new technologies out there,
Exactly.
Innovations like HVDC and so on. And India is a huge subcontinent, a huge country. You might actually tap into some of the innovations here and make use of it. Yeah.
Definitely.
We can make the bridge in some point, right?
Yeah. There has to be one.
Yeah. So now in the just to be closing and wrapping up, in a personal level, what would you like to be your legacy in energy transition? This young teenager making a hydropower plant in a remote area, now in the biggest utility, fostering innovation. How do you see it?
Well, there were a few other projects in between.
Yeah, sure.
No. Well, but this is something for a different for a different time. Yeah, I said my fulfillment is to work for VERBUND, which is a green and renewable company, and we, at the time I've been with VERBUND, we have extended our footprint all over Europe. So I think this expansion is very important. Yeah, this is also a legacy that drives me, that we do not only concentrate on Austria here, but I think we have to bring renewables and build the energy system of the future to all over Europe. I think this is one of the legacies, and VERBUND wants to invest around 6 billion euros. We had a 1 billion question earlier on. So we're investing 6 billion between 25 and 29 and 27 in grid infrastructure, in renewables, in storage, in innovative technologies. So there's a lot of money going into that, and this is in times when there is an industrial downturn in Europe. So we are really putting our money where our mouth is. We really invest, and I think this is something that has to be said at some time as well, because I think it's very important for the economy here, and this is, I think, how we can actually make a big difference for decarbonizing and building back Europe.
Mm-hmm. And just in the personal level, that we were talking about this before recording, but in a personal level, you live sustainability by yourself. Just to ask you, how do you live in your daily life?
You have to be aware of it. Yeah, you have to be aware of sustainability, and it's sometimes not so easy. The other day I read a book. It's called "How Bad Are Bananas" by Mike Berners-Lee, and before you ask, they're not as bad as avocados are far worse. Yeah.
Oh wow!
Because of their transport, to Europe, and this is actually quite an eye opener, because it talks about different products, different actions, or so, and what actual footprint is involved in those, and then you see, makes you think about your actions,
your own consumption,
consumption, and of course there are some no-brainers. I used to have a gas boiler, I have a heat pump now, I have solar PV on my roof, that's for sure, and this is how I try to make life as sustainable as possible.
About banana, just a fun fact: one of the first wars or fight between European powers in, I think, in 17th or 18th century was also about banana value chain.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But what would you say, like some of your advice for the next generation, which is coming into the industry? What advice you will give for them to acquire the skills, or just in general, where the industry is going?
Yeah, so now listen carefully to an advice from an old man. No, just joking. What I found in my life is that try to be interdisciplinary, yeah, because I think especially if you're curious, and you have to be curious, I think there you find the niches and the really interesting stuff, yeah. So I think try always to be open to new things, and try to look a bit outside the box, a little bit beyond what you normally do. Yeah, I think that's very important. I think it's also important to learn about fundamentals. Yeah, about processes, about products, about customers. And so really learn the nitty gritty as well. Yeah. Do not stay on the surface, but dig deep from time to time. I think that's also very important, and that's probably a skill that has to be also learned in school a bit more. Yeah, to really go a bit deeper. Yeah, and I think it's also a good idea to build a strong network, a strong professional network. Yeah, a strong network also from university, as you do. You're from the master's program of the technical university. By the way, I used to be a lecturer there.
Oh wow!
Yeah, just for we had some very nice seminars in Prague and so.
Yeah, and similar advice for people who want corporate investment from VERBUND as well, like budding startup.
Well, yeah, they have to do a bit more.
Yeah, but it's a super good advice because now, especially with AI, I mean, many sectors can be merged and create new careers, new perspectives. It's a new world ahead.
There's such a lot of knowledge out there, and it's just on the tip of your fingers.
Yeah,
if you're in front of a laptop.
Literally.
Sure.
And now the new section to finalize with quick fire round. So, in your experience, could be the most overhyped technology?
Escaping the climate crisis by inhabiting other planets like Mars, because
Wow,
it's so desperate. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's
like Elon Musk
Yeah.
said in Davos that he wanted to create Star Trek,
yeah.
kind of in this way.
Well, yeah. Probably I am too old for this stuff. I don't know.
So, what would you say is the most underrated enabler in any transition?
Yeah, I think what we also found out as a regulated utility, it's customers, because they only buy what they want. Yeah, and you have to give them what they want. So really, there has to be focus on customers, I think, for everybody.
you were already talking about the book. Any other book that you would recommend?
Well,
Especially for people who want some investment.
yeah, then you will have to learn the basics.
And I saw over there the book Venture Mindset.
Yeah, that's one that you can read, of course. Yeah, that's on my bedside table. No, well, one book that's probably quite interesting is called Sustainable Energy Without the Hot Air. It's by David McKay from Cambridge University, and it's quite an eye opener. And I read it cover to cover, so it's really good. It's very readable, very very well written, and you can download it actually for free. Yeah, you can either buy it as a hard copy, but you can also download it for free. That's really
Okay, we are
something
going to add it in the description of the video.
perfect. Yeah.
How would you describe the energy grid in the Austrian energy grid in 10 years?
The Austrian energy grid in 10 years will be very resilient.
On that note, thank you very much, Rudolf, for giving us time. It has been a very insightful session.
Yeah, thank
And also very funny.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Rudolf. And also for the community for watching the video and the interview until the end. And stay tuned for future interviews. Ciao.
Thank you.